I call this planning and zoning meeting to order, November 17th. Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have the roll call?
Jim Harris, Doug Hardy, Donald Bergen,
Here.
Dan McGowan,
Here.
Chad Nelson,
Here.
Susanna Ballard, here. Matthew Mitchell, Sam Levin, Gabrielle Medley,
here,
and David Diaz.
Here. All right, and Susanna, could you join us up here? All right, thank you. And correspondence and announcements from staff.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. At the most recent city council meeting, the council went with your recommendation to deny the U-Haul PD on the north end of town. They approved it by a unanimous 7-0 decision to deny that request. One other thing, we have an upcoming workshop available on December 10th. There are a couple commissioners and staff members that will be attending in person. An option has also come available to watch a recorded version of the workshop after the fact, whenever it's ready after they have that meeting. So it's $45 per person or $200 for unlimited. So if there are 2 or 3 or 4 different planning commission members who would like to watch that, it would be worthwhile for us to get that $200 packet. We could also offer that to the Board of Adjustments to watch if they wanted to too. So when it gets closer to that time, we'll be back in touch. And in the meantime, if you let me know if you'd like to watch the recorded version, we can make arrangements for that. Okay, that concludes my announcements. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Or a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I second.
Just give the internet a second to catch up.
With the technical difficulties we're having right now, we're going to go with a voice roll.
Do a roll call?
She'll call the roll call.
Okay.
The motion was made to approve was made by Mr. McGowan, was that?
Yeah, Dan McGowan.
And the second was by?
Second was by Mr. Diaz.
Mr. Diaz, thank
Mr.
you.
Bergen?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz?
Here.
Your motion, or do you approve the minutes?
Oh, yes, I approve the minutes.
Mr. McGowan?
I approve the minutes.
Ms. Medley?
I approve.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
And Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Man, it's rough without being able to push that button. All right, this is a public hearing. The structure of the meeting will allow the staff to present an item, and then the commission may ask staff questions, and the applicant will have the opportunity to present. Commissioners may have questions for the applicant, and then I will open the discussion to the audience. We ask that if you'd like to address the commission, please do so, but there's a limit to one trip to the podium per topic and 3 minutes to speak. Please spell your last name for the record when you come up. I'll close the discussion and bring the item back to staff and ask for their recommendation. The commission will then hear a motion, discuss, and make a recommendation to the city council for their final consideration. So on the floor, we have ID 21-3061, a request for a preliminary subdivision plat for La Casita Condos, 2441 Mcculloch Boulevard North, Tract 109, Block 2, Lot 1, creating an 8-unit residential condominium subdivision in the multifamily RM district. And we'll turn it over to Luke for his presentation.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. The area map is shown here. The subject property is about 2.29 acres. It's located on the north side of Mcculloch Boulevard, just north of Nolina Lane, and just up from where we are right now, up from the police station here. The complex is comprised of 8 individual units with access from Mcculloch Boulevard. The zoning map, the property is zoned RM, multiple family. The property to the rear of it is zoned R1 single family, and then across Mcculloch Boulevard it's zoned R3, another multiple family zoning district. The preliminary plat is shown here. Building permit and design review applications for the units has already been submitted, are in review. The owner proposes the condominium plat in order to sell each of the individual residential units. It includes 8 residential units and a common parcel A. All on-site sewer and water services will be privately owned, and the project will have a property owners association to manage and maintain the private drives and any improvements on the property. Well, that concludes staff's presentation. Open any questions. Thank you.
Does the commission have any questions of staff? Hearing none, is the applicant present? How you doing, Lee?
Good. Lee Johnson, APL Surveying. Morning, Commission. Morning, staff. I'm here if you guys got any questions.
I have a question, Lee.
Yeah, Susanna.
I noticed that there's parking spaces sufficient to serve 8 units with 1 maybe additional parking space. So there is no guest parking?
Per code for like this, you're required for the 1 for each unit. That's what code requires, and that's what they have provided here.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Is there going to be any restrictions on RV parking or boat parking? Because the parking looks really limited, as Ms. Ballard had mentioned.
Let me ask the developer that question there. Hey, Sam, want to step up here for a second?
You know, and since there is going to be an HOA, I was just wondering if
Yeah.
there's going to be restrictions.
Will the CCNRs be restricted?
Please state your name for the record
Yeah, Sam Woods.
and spell your last name for the record.
Woods, W-O-O-D-S.
Thank you.
So what was the answer? I'm sorry.
Yes, the CCNRs will be restricting RV and boat.
Thank you.
And Airbnb.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? And is there anybody from the audience that would like to
Thanks,
speak on this?
Commissioners.
Thank you. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to staff for staff's recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends approval of Land Use Action ID 21-3061, a preliminary subdivision plat for La Casita Condos, 2441 Mcculloch Boulevard North, Tract 109, Block 2, Lot 1, creating an 8-unit residential condominium subdivision in the RM district. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions of staff or Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question, staff. Because the parking is limited to one space per unit, is there parking allowed along the Mcculloch Boulevard in front of the units?
I believe in that portion of Mcculloch Boulevard, there's not on-street parking available.
So if one of these units has occupants with 2 cars, where would the second occupant park?
I guess they would have to find a nearby location to park. I mean, it would be one of the things about parking in general is this. Let me start over here. The development here is for 8 units, and they're 1-bedroom units, so it requires 1 parking space per unit, and then 1 parking space for every 5 units for guest parking. And when figuring the guest parking, it would be 5 units. 8 units divided by 5 would be 1 point something. And in figuring for the parking, we truncate. We don't round up or down the number of parking spaces. So it would truncate to a total of 9 parking spaces required. When a developer is coming in with a project, that's something they certainly need to keep in mind or should keep in mind. How are they going to deal with the parking on site? The city's parking requirements are minimum requirements. So if a developer chooses to offer additional parking, they certainly can. This meets the development code, so staff has no reason to deny this application the way it's laid out as far as the design review, well, when it's going through its design review process. So there's nothing in our code that says it can't be approved from the development side. It would be up to the developer to be cognizant of the parking needs for their potential clients, potential users, and then deal with that. There is no on-street parking on here, and so they would have to find adequate parking however they're going to do that. Thank you.
Did you want to bring the plat back up? The map? Okay. Any other questions of staff or conversation on the subject? Okay, can we hear a motion? You can say the motion verbally.
I'll make a motion. I move to approve land use action ID number 21-3061, a preliminary subdivision plat for Cacito Condos, 2441 Mcculloch Boulevard North, Tract 109, Block 2, Lot 1, creating an 8-unit residential condominium subdivision in the multiple family district.
I second.
Mr. McGowan seconds the motion. Any other discussion on this subject? Okay, let's move to the vote. We got our buttons back.
Motion passes 6-0.
Congratulations. Okay, our next item on the agenda is ID 21-3062, a request for a preliminary subdivision plat for Latoya Condos, 2501 Mcculloch Boulevard, Tract 121, Block 2, Lot 1, creating an 8-unit residential condominium subdivision in the RM district. And Luke, can you give us a presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. This is very similar to the previous condominium subdivision plat. In fact, it's just up the street, up Mcculloch Boulevard. This is a 0.36 acre property located at the northeast corner of Mcculloch Boulevard and Nolina Lane, just up from City Hall here. The complex is comprised of 8 individual units with access from Mcculloch Boulevard. The zoning map is very similar to the one you just saw in the previous item. It's zoned RM. The property behind it zoned R1, and the property across Mcculloch Boulevard is zoned R3 multiple family. Very similar layout on this preliminary plat. There's a total of 8 units. Building permit and design review applications have been submitted and are in review for this project. The owner proposes the 8 residential units with carports and then a common area, parcel A. All on-site sewer and water services will be privately owned, and the project will have a property owners association to manage and maintain the private drives and improvements. That concludes staff's presentation. Open any questions. Thank you.
Any questions of staff?
I have a question, repeating my previous question, asking you, is there public parking along Mcculloch Boulevard along this section?
I believe there's not public parking there. I believe on Nolina Lane, there is parking. Parking's allowed on Nolina Lane. This is a corner lot, so I believe there is some parking on that street.
Thank you.
And on the plat map there, that is that water retention? On Choya, looks like on Choya. Is that what that is?
This is a water retention area, yes.
Okay.
Luke, are these 1 and 2 bedroom or just 1 bedroom like the other ones? Or
These are 1 bedrooms. They're the same units as the
Same as-
previous example.
thank you.
Yes.
Okay, if the applicant's present and you'd like to make a presentation, please spell your last name for the record.
Hey, Commission, Lee Johnson, APL Surveying. This project's identical to the other one. Same floor plan, everything, with the 8 covered units and 1 parking, and the CC&Rs will still be the same with restricting boat, RV, everything like that. So if there's any additional questions, be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions of the applicant?
Excuse me, I have a question, sir.
Yes.
I used to live on Nolina Lane, so I'm very familiar with that street. If the people buy these 1-bedroom units and they come up here to use them, which we want them to do, and then they got a boat towed here. Now, I don't know about sitting a car or a truck and a boat on Nolina Lane. I don't know what that entails. Where are they going to park the boat?
With the CC&Rs, we restrict them from being on site. We can't control if there's parking in the public right of way. That would be, if it's against code or anything, that would be a code enforcement issue.
So if you sell these units, you tell them at the time you sell them that they can't park anything but their car
On
or
site.
a boat on site. I guess they could choose which one they wanted to do, or just cars. What is it?
Just vehicles. The parking lot would not be large enough for boats or RVs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we make comments as well? Because I think meeting code, which it does, but I think when we keep redoing these types of layouts and we don't provide good parking, I think it just makes a lot of issues. And I think maybe the developer should maybe think about a little extra parking, even though it's not required,
Well,
for the good of the community.
Yeah, well, most of these are efficiency unit type situations where the people that are coming and buying them don't have boats or RVs like that. So in all the past ones, we haven't had that issue.
I'm referring to just vehicles, though. That's still an issue. Just a comment.
Sure. Any other questions of the applicant?
Thank you, Commission.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We are open to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this matter? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring the item back to staff for his recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends approval of Land Use Action ID 21-2362, 3062, a preliminary subdivision plat for Latoya Condos, 2501 Mcculloch Boulevard North, Tract 121, Block 2, Lot 1, creating an 8-unit residential condominium subdivision in the RM district. Thank you.
All right, is there any discussion, any further discussion from the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
may I make just one comment to the commission members? I think you've brought up some good comments today. I think it's something to consider maybe asking for future discussion items if you want to look at the overall parking requirements and have a more robust discussion. Obviously, what's being presented meets what the code is requiring. And so to expect them to just automatically provide more might not be the best approach. But if you think it's something that you're concerned about and we need to take a deeper look into, it might be something that you might request a future agenda item just to have the discussion to look at it a little bit further.
Thank you.
I have a comment. If the units are 1 bedroom and a young couple or a couple buy them, and usually the couple have 2 cars if they're both working. So somebody's gonna have to park 8 cars off the road on Nolina, and I wonder how that's gonna like, and how happy the people on Nolina are gonna be. That street's only a block long.
Did you want to address the applicant again?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Woods or Mr. Johnson, did you want to respond to that?
Sam Woods. So these things are not designed for couples. They're designed for a single person.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you got a thing we could put this up there?
The plat.
Yeah. They're just studios.
Well, Mr.
So
Woods, if
like a nurse
if they're
or somebody?
designed for a single person, then obviously that works,
Exactly.
right? But if a couple buy it, thank you.
I can't
Yeah.
cure all the problems. I mean, you guys want affordable housing, here is how it's done.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, these are basically, looks like an efficiency unit. So they're gonna be really small. Looks like on the plat, they're 400 square feet.
Yeah, 2 people living there.
No,
They
it
better get
wouldn't
along.
work. Okay. And then I assume that the students at the university be perfect for them.
Out of town
They can walk-
mechanics
they
that
can
work
walk
here that
to
leave.
there.
They got all kinds of uses.
Yeah, there's definitely a need for this type of housing in Havasu
Yes,
right now.
I agree.
Get calls for it every day.
Yeah.
Okay, then, thank you, Mr. Woods.
Can I say something? So I know we're a lot of times we're looking for nirvana when it comes to this stuff, but like the applicant said, we do constantly come forward that we need affordable housing. So in these types of situations, I think they're doing a good job to provide that. And it's not just students, it's servers. You ask a lot of the restaurants in town why they're closed 3 days a week. People can't find a place to live. So it's affordable. So this kind of addresses that. And I think one thing maybe we could do is when we merchandise these to the possible homeowners or the people that are going to be buying them, we let them know about all these restrictions. And if they do have a boat, they could go work with the different marinas we have in town where they could store it if they're going to bring it down for the weekend or whatever. But I think this does address a key thing that we've all been talking about. It's in the paper almost every single day. How about we need affordable housing? So
Well, thank you, Mr. Diaz. Do you want to allude to how that works with your CC&Rs?
Oh, there's all kinds of restrictions. I mean, you could have 1 car. If they have garages, they got to be in the garage. If it's carports, they got to be in the carport. I mean, there are huge restrictions on these things. 30-day minimum rentals. So, I mean, it's a HOA.
So you're trying to, keep it to a minimum in the cars in the first place.
They're not designed. I mean, not everybody has a boat. Not everybody needs an RV. What about the little guy? That's the problem we're having is we're driving the little guys out.
Mm-hmm.
So who's going to, work at the gas station? Who's going to fix the cars? Who's going to change the tires? And they're still expensive, but it's the cheapest thing on the market.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Woods?
Yes, I still have another question. You mentioned rentals. The individuals that buy your units, they can rent them out?
No less than 30 days, so that drives the Airbnb.
Okay, that's right. But the problem now is you're gonna rent them to people that have a boat.
But the rules apply to everybody.
Mr. Chair, I think we're getting way off of the topic of just approving the plat today.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Ms. Gary is correct. If we want to take a deeper dive into parking regulations, then that's what we need to do. But if we jump into parking regulations where you have your parking for boats and RVs and things like that, it's not geared towards the workforce housing. So
We are working on a development where it's gonna have that. So you get to put your RVs there and all that stuff.
this is just not geared
This is
towards
not
that.
this.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Woods. All right. We'll bring it back to staff for your recommendation, or we've already done that, right? Okay. So is there any further discussions or a motion on this item?
I motion to approve ID 21-3062, request for a preliminary subdivision plat for Latoya Condos, 2501 Mcculloch Boulevard North, Tract 121, Block 2, Lot 1, creating an 8-unit residential condominium subdivision in the multiple family RM district.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Diaz and a second by Mrs. Ballard. Let's go for the vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Congratulations. Okay, our next item on the agenda is ID 21-3052, request for a plan development rezone for 3204 and 3208 Sweetwater Avenue, Tract 2289, Block 6, lots 2C and 2D from multiple family plan development RMPD to general commercial plan development C2PD to allow storage units per the submitted development plan. And can we have a presentation by Mr. Morris?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. The subject property is located on Sweetwater Avenue near the southeast corner of Oro Grande Boulevard. There's an alley to the rear of the properties. It's about 2.28 acres, and it's about 400 feet by 250 feet deep. It's currently undeveloped site. The properties to the south across the alley are zoned limited multiple family R3 zoning, PD, and are developed with single family homes. The property to the east is zoned C2, to the west is zoned C2 general commercial. The property to the east is zoned multiple family plan development. It's home of the South Point condominium development. The properties fronting on Sweetwater Avenue from the condominiums all the way down to Candlewood Drive are currently developed with storage units in their zone C2 and or C2PD. The Bashes Shopping Center is across Highway 95, across Sweetwater, Highway 95 and Maricopa Avenue. The subject property was originally part of the adjacent South Point condominium project here. I'll go up to the area map. Here's the South Point condo project. Phase 2 of that condo project was rezoned into to C2, and that's at the corner of Osborne and Sweetwater. So that was originally going to be phase 2 of this condo project. That didn't happen, and it was rezoned to C2, and subsequently storage units were built on that property. In 2008, the subject property was split off of the South Point condo development, and then the applicant's letter of intent requests to rezone that property from the condominium zoning, if you will, to allow storage units for boats and RVs as another phase of the project on Osborne and Sweetwater Avenue. At the time that this staff report is being presented, the C2 zoning district allows storage units as permitted uses. However, a development code amendment that potentially eliminates storage units from some zoning districts was heard by the Planning Commission on October 20th. At that meeting, the commission forwarded a recommendation to the City Council to eliminate storage units as an allowed use in the C2 zoning district, which is what they're asking to be rezoned to. The City Council will hear that item at their November 23rd meeting. So next week, they'll hear that item and make a decision as to if storage units will continue to be allowed in the C2 zoning district. Because of this uncertainty of whether storage units will be allowed in the C2 zoning district, and pending the City Council's action, the applicant has submitted this request for a planned development rezone to C2 PD to allow storage units tied to their development plan that they've submitted. So they're wanting to ensure that they have storage units regardless of what the City Council decides, because a planned development could allow other uses that may not necessarily be allowed in the underlying zoning district if it's approved by City Council. So they're asking this request to rezone it to C2 to allow storage units per their development plan. And as far as that plan, here's a sketch of their site plan. It shows the property developed with two buildings. There's a horseshoe unit, a horseshoe building wrapping around, and then in the middle there's a second building. The maximum height in the C2 zoning district is 25 feet. The buildings shown here in the site plan elevations are similar to what other projects they've done. They're a mix of siding and stucco-like appearance on the exterior. Note they do not exceed 25 feet in height. And of course, they have not been, there's been no design review. The project is presented for development. They'll have to go through the design review for their building construction, for building permits, all off-sites. So that will be required prior to development of the property. That concludes staff's presentation. We're open to any questions you may have. Thank you.
And do we have any questions of staff?
No.
I have a few questions. So the current zoning is R4, correct?
The current zoning is the RMPD. It used to be called R4, but now it's called RM, yes.
In the RMPD, do you have a record of the plan development? Do you have that image or no?
I do not have that. I don't think it showed anything in this specific area. This is a future phase. I don't think it was actually planned out for where the units were going to go there.
Okay. But it was designed to be more condos, correct?
Yes, the zoning allowed the additional condominium units.
And what was the height restriction?
The RM allows 30 feet in height. The requested zoning is C2, which allows 25 feet, which is a little bit lower.
Is that part of the Southgate overlay, which allowed higher?
No, this is not part of the Southgate.
Okay. And C2 is 25 feet?
That's correct.
So the height restriction would actually be coming down?
Yeah, it'd be coming down 5 feet based on the RM zoning that it has currently.
Okay, any other questions of staff?
I just want some clarification. So what we voted on, I remember at our last meeting, we took out of the north entrance and the south entrance of town out of C2, was it? C or
Yeah.
We took out storage out of that. And just, it was a little convoluted. Tell me they're trying to do like an end around. How to get away from that again? Can you kind of explain that again?
Well, through the plan development process, an applicant may ask for exceptions from the underlying zoning district. So let's say the city council approves eliminating storage units from C2. If someone were to come in for a property that's zoned C2, they could make an appeal, make a request for a planned development rezone based on a specific development plan layout of the property and the project, and ask for an exception to allow something that's normally not allowed in that zoning district. In this case, they could potentially ask for storage units. And so it would be based on the merits of that application. In that situation, it would come to before the Planning Commission for a recommendation, review and recommendation, and then based on that recommendation would then go on to the City Council for that planned development rezone, and then the City Council would ultimately decide how to treat that property. So you could think of it as an end around, but it's just a process, a mechanism in place for situations where it may make sense to allow that sort of use. And that's kind of part of the flexibility our development code, our zoning code has.
Essentially, they're caught in the middle of what we're trying to do. And the Northgate project, they wanted to go over 40 feet, and we didn't take storage out of that C2 zoning, but we just didn't approve that item because of the way that they want to do it. We had signage issues, height issues, and you're going to see outdoor storage from the highway. So there was, just recapping that, there was a lot of different issues on that particular project. On this project, whether it's good or bad, you know, Luke, I kind of wish you had an image of all of Sweetwater for some of our newer commissioners, but that whole Sweetwater area is been, you know, it's become a storage street. And one of the things that's, you know, okay about it is there's actually a wall on the highway there that covers a lot of that stuff. So
With your indulgence, this zoning map shows pretty well where those storage units, existing storage units are. Here's the subject property, here's the condos. And then from the condos going south, if you will, out of town, there's storage units, storage units, storage units, storage units, storage units, all the way down to Candlewood Drive. And then there's one new one that's just being finished up on Mcculloch and Sweetwater. So there are a number of storage units existing there. I think that may be what your point is.
yeah, it's become pretty much all commercial on that street. So I guess my question is the C2 zoning, is that, you know, if we pass this and we say C2 zoning, and they don't, and then City Council, you know, passes our rule, and they're kind of caught in the middle, how do we negate them from having to come back to another meeting?
I understand the question. You're asking if you recommend approval of this item with storage units, the City Council then will make a decision. If they say, no, we don't like this project, we're not going to approve it, then that would be it. The applicant could come back, but they typically have to wait a certain time frame to present the same or a similar application to the council, the City Planning Commission for a rezone. I think it's at least 1 year waiting time period typically. So if this gets denied by the council, then and if the council then also approves eliminating storage units from C2, they would be out of some sort of, they would not be able to make another application for at least a year if they're trying to do another project that includes storage units exception in this C2, in a C2 zoning district for this property. Hopefully I explained that all right.
Yeah, because I think the commission's intention was to start something, but people who are caught in the middle, we don't want to stop them from their developments. So I just want to make sure that they don't have to come back.
If the City Council denies this request, then they would have to come back if they're trying to do storage units with some sort of plan, or abandon the storage unit use overall.
But if they approve it, they're good to move forward.
If they're approved, then yes, then it would be okay to move forward. A planned development typically is good for 3 years, and they could ask for extension of time if they need more time once it's approved or if it's approved by the council.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? All right. Can we hear from the applicant? And please spell your last name for the record.
Good morning, everybody. Adam Pakes, Pakes, Summerlin Asset Management. Luke pretty much covered most of it. I'm here to answer any questions you guys might have.
Any questions of the applicant? You've done previous projects on Sweetwater?
3.
Okay. And how was your neighborhood meeting?
The first neighborhood meeting that we did was on the south side of Osborne and Sweetwater. And the major concern there was having a general C2 zoning and having anything within the C2 zone allowable to be built there next to a house. Specifically, we said no, our intent's to do storage, and we did what we said we were going to do, and everyone was happy and created a good noise barrier for his backyard. About a year later, then we did the project on the north corner of Osborne and Sweetwater and delivered that product to the community. That didn't come with too much concern. Again, storage is one of the quietest neighbors that you'll ever have, and it has a lesser traffic count than any other type of multifamily that could go there now. So in our most recent meeting, we had pretty good support from the neighbors behind us that shared that alley or was on the other side of the alley. They had some concerns as far as landscaping. They wanted to see that alley cleaned up a little bit. Security, lighting, which are things that are standard in our project. So it, from my perspective, went pretty well.
Did you have a meeting with the owners of the condominiums?
We had specifically no. We had the meeting at 9:00. October, I don't remember the date. It was a neighborhood meeting. That was to the extent of the meetings that we had.
When you developed the other section on the other side of the condominiums, you did have a meeting with the condominium owners then. I was present. Is there a reason why you didn't have a meeting with them now, since they would be squeezed in between your two projects?
No, there wasn't. There wasn't anything that we didn't want to avoid it. I don't know what the reason was why we didn't have a meeting with them specifically. What we've maintained is that this is phase 2 of what we intended to do back in 2018.
Yeah, the main concern over there in the condos is views. I think with the height restriction coming down, that's a good thing. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, let's bring the item to public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to approach us and give us a presentation or ask any questions? And if you do, please spell your last name for the record.
Hi, my name is Tamara Talbot, Talbot. I do live in the condos next door. And there was just the one general meeting this time. Last time when they met with us, they didn't say that there was a phase 2. The other part was, I'm curious about the height restrictions. I had heard it was supposed to be 17 feet. Now I'm hearing it's 25. That will affect our views. So that's just my question for the developers.
Okay, thank you. What was your last name again?
Talbot.
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 Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
Good morning, Nancy Campbell. I'm speaking in behalf of myself as a citizen. As a developer in this community, one of the things that we're really lacking is retail space as well in our commercial. I see this as being taken from multifamily to storage units, and I love the alley in the back. I'm also a designer, so this is where my brain is going to go. Any way that we could do storage in the back with multi-use conditions would be nice to have that. And I know you're here only for zoning, but I would really hate to see this whole parcel just turned into storage units if we could do some sort of multi-use, multi-family use. And a lot of communities like us are going in that direction. When we're running out of property, we are taking these properties and putting either residential on top. I know in this case, the height limits wouldn't allow, that's my only point. Thank you much.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Please approach the podium and spell your last name for the record.
Last name is Pellerito. First name is Joanna. Thank you, all of you, for being here and listening. Number one, I sold this property to Mr. Palazzolo, who happens to be my first cousin, 30 years ago. This property was C2. It was C2. And so we went ahead and had it rezoned to R4. Because back before things went upside down in the early 2000s, everybody thought people wanted condos. Well, Californians don't particularly like associations, so they don't like to get that caught up with condos. So he has owned this property over 30 years, paid property taxes, and I, as a real estate agent, and anyone else who isn't a real estate agent on the board knows, that presented to him that these are things you can do on this zoning. When we found out there wasn't any more use for South Point condos, we had no more. First of all, we don't even want to go talk about how hard it was to sell all of them, and nobody wanted any more. He's got an investment. We realized that storage was important, so they came in and did phase one of their project. We, at that point, when we got the rezoning, on the one side backed our C2, because that was also R4, because we thought all of that was going to be South Point condos. We said, well, that didn't work out. He's got this investment. Can we please go back to C2, or his money is, tied up for nothing? And of course, everybody said, sure, go ahead. We understand. So at that time, we said, well, can we also take the piece on the left, the piece we're talking about now, and rezone that back to C2, because we know the folks we're dealing with want to build a phase 2 on the other side. And what we were told by the city was, not going to be a problem. All you have to do when the time comes, we prefer you request a C2 PD. So Mr. Palazzolo, who's been paying property taxes all these years, has been waiting for him to come back, our developer, and to say we're ready to do the other side. So having it 30 years, rolling with the taxes all these years, here we come around, we go under contract in this July, to finally get this part done. We go and talk to Luke and Stu and say, okay, we didn't understand why you didn't rezone it C2 before, and now we got to go through the whole game with you, but here we are. We've been waiting all this time and we're ready to do it. So we've been working on it. Everything's going smoothly. And I get a call from Stu. Guess what? Now we got a problem, So what I want to say is this. This project, he's done these projects. He does an incredible job. We wanted to know what the community thought. When you were talking, Suzanne, about South Point, all the South Point people got invited. We didn't make it a specific South Point, but we made sure that every South Point person got notification that there was a meeting and we were going to meet out there. So I don't think that it was specific that we had to invite South Point specifically, because they were included. We were shocked that no one showed up from South Point. And since then, I have talked to a couple of the South Point gals, including Tammy, because we do care. We care what they had to say. So I want to just give you a couple comments of what the neighbors did say who showed up at the meeting. And I don't know if any of the other ones are here. Are any of you here? It's funny because they were saying maybe they'd show up, but as time went on, they got more comfortable. I guess they didn't. No way, quote unquote, no way do we want this to be apartments or multi-housing, because we don't want the traffic, the noise, and the confusion. We would only want single-family homes other than this, but we know that no one would do that because they'd be too close to the street, so that probably won't happen. Other than that, we would rather see storage units on this piece. Second comment, it would be our quietest neighbor. Third comment, we would rather see the storage units than any other options. Next comment, we're afraid of multifamily. We could see up to 21 units per acre, and we would not want that much noise traffic. This is a best case for a buffer zone between us and the road, because right behind this land, there are single-family homes, okay? And, well, single family, more or less, and they're concerned about what's going to be their buffer zone. They really didn't want, it says, they don't want a Circle K, they don't want a Walgreens, they don't want anything like that because it's just too close to them. There's not enough of a buffer zone. We all want to go along with this, was their quote, but please make it nice. Make sure the alarm doesn't go off at night. Make sure there's not too much bright light. Please landscape the back, make everything nice. And he asked, will you make it nice like the other storage units down the street? So we really have talked to the neighbors. I reached out when nobody from South Point showed up. I reached out to say, how could nobody from South Point care about this? You guys got to care. So I did get a hold of the president and to Tammy. And did you get a hold of Marla? Well, no, I got a hold of Marla through you because nobody will give me Marla's number. So we got a hold of, I kept saying, can I have
Ms.
Marla's?
Pellerito,
Yes.
Address us. We'll
Sorry. Okay. I kept trying to get Marla's number. First of all, we thought Orville was still alive. So I've been trying to get a hold of Orville for the last 3 weeks. And then finally, we FedExed him letters, did everything. So finally, somebody must have got the FedEx that we sent to South Point. So then Tammy reached out, which she was great. And I said, well, can Marla get a hold? Can you give me Marla's number? Well, obviously, Marla wasn't comfortable with Tammy giving me her number. So we've been asking Marla to call us. Please call us. And then she said, no, she will, but she was going to show up today. But she didn't show up today.
Okay.
So we've made a real effort. We had the meeting. We want to listen. Even talking with Tammy, I didn't get the feeling that they're upset about what's going on because they like the quietness of the storage units next door. They're worried about height. And I think I just asked.
And that was going to be my question. So going from the current zoning, which is 30 feet, the zoning for C2 would bring it down to 25 feet.
But I think the storage units aren't that tall.
And I was going to ask you if you know how tall they are. Mr. Pakes?
No more than 20 feet. There's no utility beyond that to have anything.
What does that mean?
There's no utility that we as a developer get by going any higher than the functional use of the door.
So you would be comfortable with if a member of planning and zoning said 20 feet?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Is there any other questions of Ms. Pellerito? Thank you, Mr. Pakes.
Anybody want to say hi? I don't get to see all of you anymore.
Any other questions? Okay, you can be seated. Ms. Talbot, did you want to? Oh.
I need to also say that my cousin Steve Pelazzola did fly in all the way from Seattle. I picked him up yesterday. He spent the night. I had to drive with him 3 hours here. I got to drive with him 3 hours back. So obviously I talked him into buying land here 30 years ago that he's been paying on. So he's holding me accountable.
Ms. Talbot, did you want to address the height issue?
Having it be 20 feet is less than 25, but it still affects our view. So,
Well, currently you could have a building that's 30 feet high.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So 20 feet is better.
Okay. Anybody else from the public? Okay, we'll then close the public hearing and bring the item back to staff for recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends the Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for Land Use Action Number 21-3052, a planned development rezone for 3204 and 3208 Sweetwater Avenue, Tract 2289, Block 6, Lots 2C and 2D from RMPD to C2PD to allow storage units per the submitted development plan. And as a reminder, this item will go to the City Council's December 14th meeting with your recommendation. Thank you.
Let's see, and let's bring it back to any discussion and or motion.
I move to recommend that the City Council approve Land Use Action Number 21-3052, a planned development rezone for 3204 and 3208 Sweetwater Avenue, Tract 2289, Block 6, Lots 2C and 2D, from multiple family plan development to general commercial plan development to allow storage units per the submitted development plan.
Do we have a second? We have a second by Ms. Medley. And let's call for the vote. Oh, go ahead.
I do not think we should approve this. It does back up to single-family residential. It's going to add more Highway 95 storage units, which we've been trying to avoid. The original zone changes by Mr. Morris on a previous meeting regarding storage units that was rejected by a 6-1 commission vote should be a factor here, where we are amending to allow this item. This is definitely, I think, wrong with what the city has been trying to arrange to not have storage units all over Highway 95.
I think one of the things that we need to consider is just how that neighborhood's being built out, or how it has been built out, and that that it actually matches the zoning, in my opinion, for the storage condominium. It's another thing that we get calls on every single day. It's crazy how much storage there is in Havasu, but it's crazy how many calls we get on it every day. And those are my comments. Yeah, so we have a motion, we have a second. Can we call for the vote?
Motion passes 4-2.
Congratulations. Okay, the next item on the floor is ID dash, let's see, 21-3051.
Yes.
Am I on the right one? Yeah. ID 21-3051, a request for a minor amendment to the future land use map of city's general plan for 39.54 acres meets and bounds property located at 6590 and 6600 and 6700 Chenoweth Drive and 1800 and 2200 Victoria Farms Road to change the future land use designation from employment to high-density residential. And can we hear a presentation from Mr. Morris?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Here's the area map. The subject properties consist of 3 properties and portions of 2 other properties with a total of just under 40 acres. The subject properties are all vacant and undeveloped. They are located east of Highway 95 with access from Chenoweth Drive and then Victoria Farms Road. It has frontage, the property has frontage on both Chenoweth Drive and Victoria Farms Road. So Chenoweth Drive goes east to west, west to east, and then Victoria Farms Road connects, goes north-south, and then goes east to west. So it has frontage on different portions of Victoria Farms Road and on Chenoweth Drive. There is, of course, an intersection at Highway 95 with a signal at that intersection. This property is located in the city's sewer service area, and sewer lines are at the intersection of Chenoweth and Victoria Farms Road. It lies within EPCOR's utility water service area. It's not in the city water, it's in EPCOR water service area. And the abutting properties to the northwest are storage units, and there are, of course, there's the Havasu RV resort also to the northwest. The zoning, which is not the subject of this meeting, but the zoning map here is the subject properties are a mix of light industrial plan development, AP, and industrial zoning. The future land use map is here. The northern portion of town is where this is located. I'm going to go to the next slide, which shows an insert. There is the subject property is here. Here's Chenoweth Drive, Victoria Farms, and the highway. Its subject is general plan designation is employment. And then some information about the different types of uses. The current general plan designation is employment. Employment-related uses such as includes uses such as light manufacturing, research and development, professional office, and office showroom. In addition, heavier industrial uses such as manufacturing, warehousing, and distribution may be permitted. And the typical characteristics from the general plan for this designation are heavier industrial uses such as intense manufacturing, warehousing, and distribution. And they should be located away from arterial streets by buffering of light industrial uses such as light manufacturing, research and development, professional uses, office, showroom, retail, service, and other related uses are what we would see in this employment district and general plan designation. The requested general plan designation is high-density residential, which would include things like attached single-family residences, townhomes, patio homes, apartments, condos, co-housing, and live-work dwellings. High-density planned communities are also available, and accessory units are also something that could be seen in high-density residential. The characteristics are uses that are clustered adjacent to commercial corridors, and units density is 10 to 20 units per acre, and then higher densities may be approved through the plan development process. So they're asking to go from the employment to the high-density residential general plan designation. This is a site sketch that was presented by the applicant. The area in red outlines the requested area of this action. There's a portion here that is not included. The subject property is just under 40 acres. So the applicant's letter of intent proposes a residential community aimed at addressing the current housing challenges that Lake Havasu residents are facing. The community is planned to be 350 plus housing units and accompanying amenities per their letter of intent. The villages map is shown here. It shows 4 villages across the subject property. Village 1 is shown as RV spaces, Village 2 as tiny homes, and then Village 3 and 4 are shown as manufactured housing. There's also showing a management office and an entry gate near the main entrance on Victoria Farms Road. Various amenities such as a clubhouse, pool, spa, cabana, sports courts, etc. are also shown on the plan. The general plan amendment does not require compliance with this specific development plan. They're asking for the general plan designation of high-density residential. It's not necessarily specifically tied to this plan, but this is what they've presented as an idea of what they want to do with this property. If this general plan amendment is indeed approved by the city council, then it's anticipated they would ask for a rezone to vest the zoning for the property to do what they want. And in this case, a manufactured home zoning district could be a successful rezoning designation for this property. When reviewing this request, it may prove useful to ask if there are any other areas of the city where this type of development can be established. Parcels of this size or larger approved for high-density residential uses are not really currently found within the original platted areas of town. The majority of the larger properties outside the originally platted areas are owned by the state of Arizona or the Bureau of Land Management. The state and BLM properties are typically cost prohibitive to acquire and develop and have a low-density residential general plan designation. Since there is so little land already approved for high-density residential, which is what this request is, a development of this proposed scale would require a general plan amendment regardless of where it's proposed. That concludes staff's presentation. I know the applicant is here and has a presentation to make also. Staff is open to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, any questions of staff? Hearing none, if the applicant's present, can you please approach the podium and state your last name for the record?
Good morning, commissioners. My name is James Gray, Gray. I am the director for the Partnership for Economic Development. I'm here to talk to you about why we see this project as being valuable to the community, but absolutely essential to the business community. So I'm going to cover that. If we could start my slide. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Luke. And then Waylon Gates will kind of describe what we see in this multi-process zoning of what we see as a solution for essential housing. So let's go to the next slide. So I'm here to talk a little bit more about big picture, why I'm interested in this project, why economic development sees this as value. For one, I'm going to talk a little bit about essential housing problem. I'm not going to belabor it. I know that the News Herald just did an exhaustive series, and Mr. Diaz says it's in the paper every week because, you know, beyond broadband, the city survey said it's a huge issue. And so we know that. And then I want to talk about land valuations and why it demands a different approach to solve this problem, and then why innovation matters. So let's go to the next slide. So as an economic developer, it just took me like a minute and a half to do the agenda. So I'm going to try and get through it without talking too much. But here's you'll see to the right, the average home price in Lake Havasu was $403. We've seen a massive increase. And this was even happening in a rise pre-COVID. But you look at the graph over here, I think it's really more interesting to me. When you go back, you'll actually see that when you hit March, the sold listings were higher than new listings. This is a peak problem for supply. Generally in a hot market for real estate people, if we have 600 to 800 homes on the market, you're really in a seller's market. I mean, that's a hot market for a community that has 28,000 plus units. That's a pretty hot market. You see the market is dipping below 300. that's a scarcity problem of being able to onboard people here. And it's also takes a lot of situations that we've seen in the workforce where investors that do rental properties, once the market hits this critical high, it's almost their obligation to themselves for the investment to sell it, right? So what happens? They have to release the renter. And this has become a real scarcity in the rental market. So supply is incredibly low right now. We heard of 2 projects earlier today. Those are great. I love that we do have developers embracing this because it is a need, but we need to do it on a larger scale. It's estimated right now that we need between 1,500 and 2,000 units to service what we call the essential, attainable, or workforce housing. And we're losing people for that. So that's just talking about homes that are already currently here. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this I think is incredibly hurts our ability to create new spaces for people is land valuation. So right now, currently, to be in an essential housing, let's call it a first-time buyer's market, the actual land is pricing them out. So entry-level lots right now, I mean, we used this in the applicant meeting that this is a very average lot. It had already sold by the applicant meeting. And basically had almost zero description to it. Besides, it said it could have a large garage. It's not in any desirable location except for it was a flat piece of dirt, which leads me to my next point. We're selling lots right now for $100,000 to $25,000, but the problem is all these lots that we're selling in this, they're the least desirable lots that are left in streets, which essentially need anywhere from $15,000 to $40,000 worth of retention work to actually build a house on. So we're putting the price of just the raw land, when you're starting with that mechanic, just the flat baseline, and say we need attainable essential housing, we're just already priced out of the market. We just had a cost of living come out for Lake Havasu. Our cost of living in housing, if you're familiar with that, the baseline for COLA ratings is 100. Phoenix came in at 104. Our basic cost for living in Lake Havasu was 131. Our housing was 181. It is really suffocating the workforce. And so trying to find some different ways about how we build in this market to make it attainable. So I just want to talk about a few different things. So how would we go to change this metric when the very basic raw material is so high? So there's subsidies, grants, private funds. There's vertical construction. That can spread the cost of land over depending on how high we go. We don't have a lot zoned in that outside of the downtown area that can go 60 feet, but then the land parcels are so small that it becomes problematic in parking because all the parking has to go underground, if you've done any of the performas on that. So we're left to density. We're left to density, and there's a couple different ways. I don't know if you've heard this. If you've ever heard, has anyone here heard of pad split? Okay, yeah. This is coming to larger metros everywhere, where people are actually rezoning spaces so people can start splitting up homes to allow small apartment complexes to be built inside with legal entities over them. That's how much people need spaces to live, to actually work in the community they desire. And then finally, which I think the innovation that this concept brings is removing the land cost altogether. And so I want to talk about that. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, here's a couple things why I love this project. And before we go on, I actually toured a facility up in the town of Camp Verde. It's a project, Verde Ranch up there. It's done on an opportunity zone. These are actually pictures from the 3-bedroom, 2-bath that they were selling for $142,000. It's quite nice. I thought it was very well appointed. Had a lot of amenities. So those are just pictures from a project up there that they've done to solve some of the housing crisis for their workforce in Sedona and the surrounding areas. So one of the things that I know we're just talking about land use today, but ultimately we're going to be talking about manufactured housing, is the ability to build faster and increase productivity and lower the costs. And another thing that I think that these guys have done really well is they've really plugged into the shared cost. If you think about the concept of a Lyft or an Uber, the ability to share a commodity. When we start looking about housing people in Lake Havasu, and we're doing it through rentals of fee simple homes, if you have 10 homes and there's 10 pools, and it's $110 a month for your pool service, well, imagine if there's only one pool. Well, then we've cut it down by 90%. So having shared costs, shared abilities, shared amenities is a huge way beyond the structural cost to lower the person that's actually living in there. And I think they've done a tremendous job. This project would not even be here. This funded project would not be here if it wasn't in an opportunity zone. That's really driving the investment. Just the ground investment for the infrastructure before any units would be sold on top is just shy of about $25 million. They'll talk about how well appointed the community is, but it also gives people to be a sense of ownership and also a sense of community. And then finally, I would just add, from a person that works in tune with the business community, I just, from what I've heard already this morning from you guys, I feel a sense that you guys already embraced the concept and ideas, and you're looking for ways to really recognize essential housing as being a really next step in retaining the talent we have, but also in the growth of our community. So with that, I know that it's probably a lot of things that you guys have already thought about, but I think that their product is really trying to create a solution for our community. So I'm going to bring up Waylon to kind of walk you through the community, and he can explain more about the benefits.
Thank you. So my name is Waylon Gates. I'm with North American Assets, and I also represent our joint venture with Castle Park Investments. I have Evan Bernstein and Brad Scott here. They've been the money behind this project and will continue to be. So we can go to the next slide. The villages at Victoria Farms are designed to be a community inside of a community that creates a very safe place for its residents. When we talk about housing that's essential or affordable, sometimes there's a concern that this creates an environment that doesn't support the type of ideals that the community would like overall. Another part of that is supportive community. So inside of a community like what we're proposing, people work together to find solutions to deal with childcare or running errands or medical appointments, stuff like that, because they become very integrated and very helpful to each other, which helps offset cost, save times. It also creates a very strong community. It's centrally managed, so we will own the entire project and manage it like an apartment complex would be. So we have a lot of say-so in what can or can't happen, a lot of control that is different than condos or single-family homes where the city's left to deal with that. We think that's a huge advantage for all of the involved parties. A gated entrance, that's something that we know that people feel safer when they know that the only people that are in their community are the people that are supposed to be. Keeps people that may be interested in other things from being there. We came up with a list of amenities that we think really address what residents of Lake Havasu that are in the target audience that we're looking for would really like to have. Things that would help it be of more value to them and really enjoyable to make them thrive, not just have a roof over their head. So central clubhouses, pools, a walking path so people can get out, kind of modeled after the path around the island. Playgrounds, pet areas, and obviously pickleball is the sport right now that everybody likes doing, and so plenty of pickleball courts to accommodate the residents. We also wanted to implement multiple size options. So not everybody has a big family, but also not everybody's just a single person traveling nurse or something that needs something small. And we like the idea of having the various villages sort of cater to people that are at various stages in life or different family sizes. So you have people that have kids near people that have kids so that they can help each other and the kids can play together and all that kind of thing. As Luke went through when he first was presenting this, we have RVs, tiny homes, and then the larger units would be manufactured homes or factory-built homes. The number of units that we are looking to have will be 350 plus. We're shooting for between 350 and 400. We're at a very early stage. We've not been able to get into the engineering with floodplains and some stuff like that to be able to really know the exact number. But based on the size of the land, we believe that we can get to those more than 350. So what you see there on the slide is a picture of the entry level. This is the most basic unit that we would be offering. It's 400 square feet. I wanted to share this with you guys so you can see what this looks like. This isn't something that anybody, I believe, would be really ashamed of being a part of or living in. The outside picture, obviously, some nice outdoor space, very appealing. The floor plan, you can see it's small and basic. There's not a lot of extra there, but it's also nicely laid out, well thought out. I've got some other pictures. Luke, if you can just go through just real quickly. This is actual photos from a unit. Again, this is the most basic level, smallest in size and lowest in price. And you can see that it's nice. It's not cheap. It's not what people, I think, picture when they're picturing affordable housing. This particular unit is a one-bedroom unit, so you're obviously not going to have a family in this. This will be a single person or a couple. It's detached walls in the whole project. There's no shared walls, which is something that we know residents don't necessarily care for, to hear the neighbor's TV or anything like that. The outdoor space on this particular unit we really love. It matches the Arizona, what we love about Arizona. This is just a small patio that's on the front, fireplace, TV. I mean, a great place for somebody to enjoy themselves. We can picture this inside of a community where you have other residents that are enjoying walking their dog or what have you, and seeing each other on their decks and being able to talk about life. And we really think that's pretty amazing. So here's a conceptual plan that was put together. This is the one that Luke showed. I don't need to go over this a whole lot more other than we did design it to have different villages that will kind of have different sizes of product that we think will help kind of put like with like to help create more community. Again, you can go to the next slide. This is just another concept that was put together by a different company. Again, showing various villages, different amenity areas, and a little bit of the traffic flow. We do picture an entrance off of Victoria Farms Road. We picture that mainly for traffic purposes because Chenoweth is a little bit more busy. Go ahead. So the process that we're going through today's, I would say step 2, we had a community meeting that went really well. We got all positive feedback. We had the main number of the attendees to that community meeting were from the RV community that's to the north of this project. And they were there, obviously, to learn about it, but they all were very excited to hear about a project that's like theirs. They also were happy to know that it's going potentially to be a community, not a heavier use of some sort that they don't necessarily want as neighbors. So they were pleased to hear that that's what we were proposing. So we're here today for this meeting, obviously, and then it's going to go to City Council. We'll be coming back again, asking for the final zoning to get the zoning that we would need to see the project actually happen. We anticipate that will be in January. Obviously, the holidays are going to slow some things down. If that does go that direction, then by the middle of February, we anticipate that would be out of City Council. That would put us on track for being able to start moving dirt by the end of spring of next year. We think the time frame is about 12 months to get it actually up and going where people could move in. I really appreciate your time today and happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Good morning. Thanks for the presentation. It's pretty thorough. Appreciate it. So I read the article in the paper today. It's a pretty nice article. So, you know, these types of projects are nice. They I've seen hundreds of these types of things. It's not really that unique, but it does help a need here in Havasu. I noticed in the article today, someone here was quoted as saying the low-end tiny homes are going to be around 100,000 or a little bit less. Are the largest ones going to be 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom, or do you have any idea what the larger units will be?
We picture that the larger units would be up to 4-bedroom.
4-bedroom, and you're looking at about what, 300,000?
Actually, the prices start to top out around 200,000.
Okay, so that's affordable. And what about the actual space rent? Because the people have to get a loan for the property for their actual mobile home,
yes,
and then they have to pay a space rent. And what is that going to range? Do you have any idea?
Obviously,
I know it's way out ahead of ourselves, but
yeah. So right now we're modeling this whole thing at the $600 to $700 a month space rent. Obviously, space sizes, location is going to make that vary. The real way that we've been looking at this project overall is what's an all-in cost for the end user. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to have space rent, they're going to have a loan, assuming that
there's certain loan companies that specify and specialize in these mobile homes.
Exactly.
And they almost treat them like a car purchase almost. It's really interesting. I've been through it before, but is the manager, I know you have here a management office. Are you projecting a manager will have a residence there and live on the property?
Potentially. Sometimes they do that. We will have a management office. It'll be on-site management. Just to touch on the cost, I just want to thoroughly answer that question.
Sure. And to make sure I haven't lost my Thomas Guide maps. So isn't Lowe's right across the street?
Yeah,
that side of Chenoweth.
Luke is marking that. So that white kind of corner in the lower left corner is the back of Lowe's.
It's Lowe's, right? And then there's a big storage unit behind. And where was the meeting? What meeting? You had a meeting with another mobile home park down Chenoweth and London Bridge Road or up on 95?
No, it was actually the Havasu RV Resort, which is directly to the north.
Yeah.
Those are individually owned lots. So there's many, I think there's nearly 400 owners in there. And because they're within the radius, we sent them all invitations to the community meeting. And that community meeting was held out at the shops.
Yeah, it's a great project, great job on what you guys have done here, and I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
One thing that I wanted to address is just how great of a job I think the PED has done in this project. The applicants, needed some guidance, and they went to the PED. PED worked with the investors and worked really hard on this presentation. I attended the meeting with Luke where they presented this to the community out there, and they've looked at everything pretty thoroughly. Can we open the hearing up to the public? If anyone from the public wants to approach us, please state your name for the record. Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring the item back to staff for recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Based on the findings, the Development Review Committee recommends the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for Land Use Action 21-3051, a minor amendment to the future land use map of the city's general plan for 39.54 acres of meets and bounds property located at 6590, 6600, and 6700 Chenoweth Drive and 1800 and 2200 Victoria Farms Road to change the future land use designation from employment to high-density residential. And as a reminder, this item will go to the City Council at the December 14th meeting with your recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Any additional discussion and or a motion?
I motion. I gotta find it, or it's not coming up. I motion to recommend, we move to recommend that the City Council, wait, that's not the right one. All right, I recommend and I motion that we approve, the City Council to approve the land use action number 21-3051, a minor amendment to the future land use map of the city's general plan for 39.54 acres of meets and bounds property located at 6590, 6600, and 6700 Chenoweth Drive and 1800 and 2200 Victoria Farms Road to change the future land use designation from employment to high-density residential.
And do we have a second? Okay, we have a second from Ms. Medley. Any additional comments, questions? All right, let's move to the vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Congratulations. All right, at this time, let's see, we don't have any other items on the agenda, do we?
The next thing on the agenda is item number 7, the call to the public.
Okay. We have a call to the public. Anybody is able to approach the podium for any reason, state your name for the record. Hearing none, we'll close the call to the public and go to Mr. Morris for any future meetings.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. Yes, we have a regular scheduled meeting for December 1st, 2021, almost the end of the year, December already. We have one item for that agenda. Thank you.
Okay, and we stand adjourned.